Hello, I'm going to read to you how to think like a psychologist as well as the wild boy of Avaron. These are both your readings this week, which are week 2, September 14th. You can follow along with the screen, or if you would prefer, you can print this off in Schoology and you can follow along and highlight if that works for you. Okay, so how to think like a psychologist. Why study psychology? Many people begin their study of psychology without a clear definition or understanding of the subject. They may have images of a laboratory where scientists run rats through mazes, or they may assume that it deals only with abnormal emotional disturbances. These, however, are only small parts of the study of psychology. Psychology provides tools to help us gain insight into our own behavior as well as our relationships with others. What to expect? As you begin your study of psychology, you will find that it is different from any of your other classes. This is because psychology is connected to both the social sciences, such as history or economics, and the natural sciences, such as biology and chemistry. As a social science, psychology explores the influences of society on individual behavior and group relationships. As a natural science, psychology looks for biological explanations for human behavior. You will learn more about the social and biological aspects of human behavior as you draw from the course material to gain insight into your life and the lives of those around you. All right, the picture caption here in the center, it's kind of a dark image, hard to see, but it says, your study of psychology can help you gain insights into explaining your and others' behavior. And then since we were just talking about the brain, this is a PET scan of the human brain. How do psychologists think? In your study of psychology, you will learn to think like a scientist. Scientists constantly question their own assumptions and look for alternative evidence and conclusions. Scientists, including psychologists, use the scientific method as a problem-solving tool. It teaches them to think critically by encouraging open-mindedness, intellectual curiosity, and evaluation of reasons. Using the scientific method will help you think critically and be objective when applying principles to everyday issues, people, and problems. Okay, to center this caption here, the scientific method. The scientific method consists of 5 steps that help the scientists integrate theory and research, as well as compare empirical or factual data with common sense ideas. Using the scientific method will help you think like a psychologist. On the clipboard, the scientific method. Number 1, ask a question or identify a problem. Develop the habit of questioning assertions and asking for evidence. Consider and question information. Do not automatically accept it. Number 2, form a hypothesis. Remember that the goal is never to prove the hypothesis, but rather to confirm or fail to confirm it. Number 3, test the hypothesis, collect data. Use the hypothesis to make predictions. Test the predictions by experiments or observations. Analyze the results of your test. Ask questions about how the facts were obtained. Was the information collection and research process adequate? It does not matter who says something is true or false. What matters is the evidence, the facts and reasoning on which the idea is based. And number 5, draw conclusions. Modify your hypothesis according to the results gained from the testing of your hypothesis. All right, and then I'm going to scroll back up to the top. Here are your review questions that go along with this reading. Question number 1, give 2 reasons why we study psychology. Number 2, how does psychology relate to other classes you may take in school? And number 3, why do psychologists use the scientific method? You may answer those questions in the space provided, or if you prefer not to print the document, you can write them in your notebook. We will go over the answers at our next Zoom session. Okay, our second reading for this week, The Wild Boy of Avaron by David Hawthersall. In 1799, Philippe Pinel was asked to examine a wild boy, believed to be about 12 years old, who had been found by 3 hunters in the woods of Saint Serin near Avaron in southern France. From reports of hunters who had caught glimpses of him, it was believed that he had lived in the woods for some years. He was virtually naked, covered with scars, dirty, and inarticulate. Apparently, he had survived on a diet of acorns and roots. He walked on all fours much of the time and grunted like an animal. News of the capture of this wild boy caused a sensation in Paris. The newly formed Society of Observers of Man arranged for him to be brought to the capital for study. Taken to Paris in 1800 and exhibited in a cage, the wild boy sat rocking back and forth and was completely apathetic. He was a great disappointment to the hordes of curious spectators. After examining the boy, Pinel concluded that far from being a noble savage, the boy was an incurable idiot. Despite this conclusion, one of Pinel's assistants, Jean-Marc Gaspard Itard, 1744 to 1835, undertook to care for the wild boy and to try to educate him. First, he gave him a name, Victor, and then made a working assumption that Victor's behavior was due to his social isolation, rather than the result of brain damage or some other organic condition. Itard had 5 aims. First aim: to interest him in social life by rendering it more pleasant to him than the one he was then leading, and above all more like the life which he had just left. Second aim: to awaken his nervous sensibility by the most energetic stimulation and occasionally by intense emotion. Third aim: to extend the range of his ideas by giving him new needs and by increasing his social contacts. Fourth aim: to lead him to the use of speech by inducing the exercise of imitation through the imperious law of necessity. Fifth aim: to make him exercise the simplest mental operations upon the objects of his physical needs over a period of time, afterwards inducing the application of these mental processes to the objects of instruction. Itard, 1894. So, Itard undertook Victor's rehabilitation. With the assistance of Madame Guerin, Itard succeeded, after truly heroic efforts, in teaching Victor to pay attention, to keep clean, and to dress himself, to eat with his hands, to play simple games, to obey some commands, and even to read and understand simple words. However, despite all their efforts, Victor never learned to talk. At times, he showed signs of affection, but often, and especially under stress, his behavior was erratic, unpredictable, and violent. Victor learned simple discriminations, but when they were made more difficult, he became destructive, biting and chewing his clothes, sheets, and even the chair mantelpiece. After working with Victor for 5 years, Itard gave up hope of ever attaining his goals. Victor's background and the passions of his adolescence could not be overcome. Victor lived with Madame Guerin until 1828, when he died at the age of 40. And your review questions for this reading are: number 1, do you think Itard's experiment was worthwhile? Why or why not? Number 2, how would you react if you had been the one who had found the boy in the woods? Take his initial description into account. Number 3. Why do you think Victor became such an important case study in the history of psychology? Again, you may answer these questions in the space provided or on a separate piece of notebook paper. And you do not have to submit these to Schoology. These again will be in your notebook, and we will go over the answers on our next Zoom call.